Hello everyone, I'm Tracy Derwin, and in today's video I have some updates to the riots that have now spread to other cities outside of Los Angeles. And then I'm going to touch a little bit on the introduction to the surveillance state and AI, and kind of put that theory of maybe this is the overall goal for these riots. I do want to show that there were ads on Craigslist for the Austin area, and they look almost identical to the ads from the Los Angeles area, looking for extremely tough, brave men for a high-risk crew. Here's another one trying to recruit people with a military background, except for Marines. They don't work with Marines anymore. And one of the organizations that is organizing these events is called No Kings. And you can actually go on the website and sign up for a webinar, and they'll give you instructions on how to get involved. And they say it's a peaceful protest, but they say, to turn off your tracking, not to take pictures, not to make videos, don't make any kind of posts on social media, and how to wear protective gear. And here is, I guess, the goal for the nationwide protests for June 14th. So it seems like the 14th is the goal to make this thing go nationwide in most of the major cities in the US. And there's a little update on the guy that I featured in my previous video who was driving the truck that was distributing the protective masks to the protesters in LA. And they found him and they arrested him. And he is a member of one of the local unions in the LA area. All right, so I'm going to just briefly go through some images from the other cities that are now having protests. And this one is from Austin. And this one is taken from Dallas. And this one's from Atlanta. And I believe these are fireworks, which seems to be a common theme in these events. And here is Chicago. So far, this one looks like a peaceful demonstration. And this is from Omaha, Nebraska. This is from Philadelphia. Here, this is the Seattle protests. And New York City. So New York City looks like it is getting a little crazy there. And then I'm going to play a little clip from Governor Abbott and his reaction to the protests coming to Texas.
Protests are happening in a small part of Los Angeles, and we are seeing demonstrations across the country. Now Texas will be deploying their National Guard.
Protests against ICE spreading to other cities from coast to coast. Overnight, Texas Governor Greg Abbott says he will deploy National Guard troops ahead of protests this week. In his words, to ensure peace and order.
In Texas, our law enforcement officers are on the front lines to keep Texas a law and order state. To have their backs, I am signing a law to ensure they can use every tool available to combat criminals without being targeted by rogue prosecutors. In Texas, we support our law enforcement officers.
All right, so Governor Abbott seems to be pretty serious about stopping these things in his state. Now I'm going to touch a little on a possible reason for why these things are happening, like one of the end goals. And it could be to tighten up the surveillance state. So here's an article saying that ICE is paying Palantir $30 million to build an immigration surveillance platform. Now, Palantir is owned by a man named Peter Thiel, who is a big supporter of Vice President Vance, and he's now becoming very close to President Trump. Here is a picture of some Reaper drones that are going to be used to track the insurgents in Los Angeles. Here's a post suggesting that these riots are to kind of usher in a stronger surveillance state. And the BBB, or the Big Beautiful Bill, that is now in the process of being passed in the Senate. So it passed the House by 1 vote, and in a couple of weeks it goes to the Senate. And it's starting to look like it will pass. Now it's about a lot of things, a lot of budgetary changes, but there are parts of this bill that include surveillance and AI. And right here, there's a little section saying that for a 10-year period, AI will be unregulated. So states cannot regulate AI. And here is $120 million for the development, procurement, and integration of long endurance unmanned aerial systems for surveillance. So they'll be putting like UAPs, or they'll be putting high-tech drones to surveil our country. And I'll play a clip from Ron Paul, what he thinks about these events as ways to usher in new legislation.
It's so often they do this when you run into a crisis, like when the Patriot Act was passed.
Yeah.
You know, pass the Patriot Act, everything will be all right. And then all of a sudden we find out, oh, it was already written. You know, we were just waiting for the opportunity.
Yeah.
And there's some of that goes on because they plan the opportunities and they just wait for the opportunity to promote what they've been working on all along. And and I still am baffled by, well, how are they motivated? Do they just say, well, I'm evil and I admit it, I'm just going to make the best of my evilness? Yeah. But they talk to themselves. They actually believe, I think most of them, maybe I'm guessing, believe they're doing the Lord's work.
Yeah.
You know, there's so many that I met in Washington, they made the assumption that people are stupid.
Yeah.
They don't want to take care of themselves. They won't work, and they need us. Need them to take care of them and make sure that nobody gets richer than they believe that they should be, and everybody has to be safe. And the government turns into a system that everybody has to have perfect safety under this state control, and give up all your liberties.
So it's starting to seem like Ron Paul is right, because we're seeing these things being put into law, and it does coincide with the civil unrest that we're seeing all over the country. And it seems like every day it gets worse, it gets more violent and more widespread. So, I heard this, a few days ago, but it's, more and more starting to look like this is one of the main goals for these protests. So that's going to do it for today. Thank you guys so much for being here, and I'll see you all soon.